Can I just read something to you guys? I hope this doesn't freak you out. Now, here's the idea of academic freedom, right? Professors say, I have the right to say what I want. I have tenure, and so that's what academic, and we have an academic here as well. So this is a Arab-American doctor at the University of California in San Francisco, and this just came out last week. These are her tweets. She's a doctor. She's on the faculty at this medical school. Zionist doctors may be harming patients and should be investigated. The presence of Zionists in the U.S. medicine system causes structural impediments to health equity. So I don't know how people feel about that. That's a way that is off campus. She's not necessarily teaching, although I heard this particular hospital, I heard some doctors are refusing to care for Jewish patients, which I'm told violates the first principle. Apparently, the doctor's principle is not just the Hippocratic Oath, but it's the body in front of you, right? You treat the body in front of you. So that is obviously not applying to Jews at this university. But she's an academic. She's off campus. She's using social media. You know, she's got tenure. You might feel outraged by it, but do you think that she has the First Amendment right to speak?
I think you're very wise to raise this distinct issue of her professional obligations as a doctor. I can't speak to that, but speaking specifically and only about her academic status, under the American Association of University Professors, AAUP, free speech principles that go back to 1915, so-called extra-mural speech, which occurs not in your role as a professor, not in your role in the classroom, not in your role in academic research, but in your capacity as a citizen. You don't give up your free speech rights to opine, to mouth hateful and hated opinions in your private citizen capacity unless your statement demonstrably shows that you are unfit for carrying out your academic responsibilities.
But you're scaring Jewish
patients.
patients.
And the AAUP standards go on to say that extramural statements are almost never going to satisfy that standard. This is what's being used against Amy Wax at the University of Pennsylvania. Exactly the same thing. There's been not one allegation of actual discrimination against a student in a class or any such statement in a class.
This is the professor at the law school who's made some comments. I just want to make them sure. She's made some what is considered incendiary comments. She said, I've never had a black student, African-American student, that's graduated in the top half of my classes. In my classes, they just seem to be always in the bottom of the class. So, you know, I'm sure your mouths are open. She says a number of things. She's now on some kind of leave, right? But there's been...
You know, so, I mean, this is an important point. The professor's right to speak extramurally does not have any effect on my right to expose what she said.
Right.
Or to put a review on whatever the medical equivalent of Yelp is that isn't a particularly favorable review, or to say, patients beware, you know, should she see a Star of David, this is what she happens to think. I mean, I was somewhat amused because I was at a doctor's office not long ago being examined, and he was busy telling me, oh, I love your columns. I was like, well, I'm glad you like them, because the alternative could be hair-raising.
Andres, can you turn that off? We know it's 6 o'clock.
So
we're going to be done soon.
But this is important, and this gets back to, I think, the central principle here, which is that generally speaking, the right response to terrible speech is more and better speech, right? That's why I take such a dim view of hate speech laws, whether they're in Canada or in Europe. Driving speech underground doesn't make the thought or the agenda go away. It just martyrizes speech that is foul and ought to be exposed, which is why I think Brandeis is right.
Thanks, Andres. And Brett knows I totally disagree with that. But I
Well,
would.
no, that was the 3-to-1 debate.
That was where I was getting hammered by the three of them. I think that's just nuts. But by the way, I think it's nuts that neo-Nazis get to march on Holocaust survivors. I think it's nuts that you could break up the military funeral of someone who died in Afghanistan because you don't like gays serving in the military. I think the Europeans are right about this, but she's going to get very upset any second. So let me just, because we got to finish this up quickly. I want to raise one question and then one question from the audience. One question goes to this idea about Charlottesville, the Jews will not replace us. They were represented by your crew, the ACLU, just like the ACLU represented the neo-Nazis in the 1977 Skokie case. After that happened in Charlottesville, the outcome of that, 200 lawyers for the ACLU wrote a letter to the executive director and said, what the hell are we doing? Why did we go in front of the judge in Charlottesville to get these clowns an opportunity to march under the First Amendment? We should be involved in other stuff. We shouldn't be involved here. And what I want to ask is, I think that Nadine knows this is your former organization, and if you watch Floyd, the movie about Floyd, Speaking Freely, the new American Masters, you kind of see it at the end. There's a dark spot there. And what's the dark spot? It's that the progressive left that was always libertarian in favor of civil liberties is now focused on racial inequities and social justice. And so they've run away from this. And that's another reason why the culture has changed. The law isn't being protected enough by the people that should be doing the protecting, because those people, your former group, are saying, yeah, but I'm really a progressive, and in order to be a progressive, I have to be in racial justice and social activism and not free speech. And I don't like Nazis, and I don't like the people of Charlottesville. That was my last question. Do we have any response to the dissipation of that progressive agenda that now is fixated on a woke protocols and not free speech?
Well, as you so well underscored by pointing out what many people don't know, that the ACLU did successfully represent the Unite the Right demonstrators in Charlottesville. And by the way, we won in court because there was not one iota of evidence at that point that there were even any plans for violence. The chief of police testified that they had been monitoring the situation and there would be no violence, and if there were violence, it would be completely under control. We know tragically that was not the case. The only reason that was given for denying the permit at the last minute was disagreement with the viewpoint, which the Supreme Court has said violates the bedrock principle of First Amendment. Government may not pick and choose who gets to speak based on whether the viewpoint is popular or not.
Just quickly, there are exceptions, time, place, and manner restrictions. The city of Charlottesville said, you know what, we really don't want you here. This part of the campus is going to be a volcano. We're going to put you over there. And the ACLU successfully said, no, the city can't do that. They can't marginalize your speech by putting you somewhere else.
I mean, look, the Illinois case of Nazis marching, they were deliberately marching in a Jewish area.
Well, not only that, Floyd, people didn't know. For some reason, Skokie in the 70s had the largest per capita percentage of Holocaust survivors, not Brooklyn, Skokie, and that's why the Nazis were there.
Right, and that's why it was brave, and the ACLU deserves credit.
And they were all Jewish
for
lawyers.
representing them, of course.
Question from the audience, we'll say goodnight. Given that both the left and the right engage in limiting speech and cancel culture, what gives you hope that this can change in the future, and how do you see that change coming? This is from the live stream. This is from someone named Jay. Jay High? I think it's Jay, or Jay High.
Well, there has been so much criticism of cancel culture, and one of the things that, and we've seen examples where it affects people who have progressive views, the Colin Kaepernick situation, as well as people who have conservative views. But what I find really encouraging is surveys show that it's the youngest generation, those that are now in high school and just entering college, who have the most negative view toward cancel culture, because they've grown up with it, they've suffered from it, they've seen their friends be exposed to it and punished by it.
Wait till you see the reaction of the youngest generation to yesterday's vote in the House, unanimous vote which ought to make us nervous right away when the House is unanimous, to ban TikTok.
Yep.
I
Right.
mean,
They're gonna
that's
have,
going to be
that's gonna-
a very big,
they're going to take
a
that personally.
really big case if that happens.
Look, I mean, the ultimate guarantee against cancellation is that it's still a free country, and you can still go west and light out for the country, to quote Huck. And you know, if I say something that ends up getting me fired, I'm fine because I'm going to go and do something else. And there's going to be a market, I think, for people who think in a contrary direction and swim against currents. That's always been the nature of this country. So I've seen people get canceled and come back much stronger, much stronger. We know some of them on this stage. And that's ultimately, the fact is that America has great problems, but it has profound sources of regeneration and renewal, all of which I would argue are ultimately founded in the freedoms of the First Amendment.